Okay, so we will make a start now. Thank you so much for joining us this tea time. My name is Kelly Self, and I am the project coordinator for Hepp, and I support underrepresented groups into higher education. So I look after students who are care experienced, young carers, disabled students, mature students, and then yourselves, parents and carers. Okay, so who are Hepp? Hepp are the Higher Education Progression Partnership, and we're an organisation funded by both universities in Sheffield, so Sheffield Hallam and the University of Sheffield. And we work across South Yorkshire and North East Derbyshire, going into lots of different schools to sort of encourage young children, young people and adults to consider higher education opportunities. Now, with us today was supposed to be Dan, who is our engagement manager for our sister organisation, HeppSY. He is a qualified careers guidance professional. Unfortunately, he is off sick today, so I'm going to deliver the session today. We will obviously take questions at the end. What I am unable to answer, I will make sure that they go into a Q&A note, and Dan will answer those for us, and then we'll send them out with the presentation slides as well as the recording. Okay, so today what we're going to cover is we're going to look at those modern career journeys, set the scene a bit. We're going to look at top tips for supporting your young person. We have also got one of our staff members who is a graduate intern called Ruby, who's going to just chat for a few minutes as well. And then we'll try and answer some questions at the end. And as I said, obviously, depending on time, we might not get through all of them, but any that we can't answer, we will obviously make sure that they are covered and sent out. Okay, so obviously, what is a career? Your journey through life, learning and working. Everyone has a career, whether they work or they don't. So for young people, knowing where to start with their career exploration is quite difficult. So it's obviously looking at, it happens over time and it is lifelong. It can be flexible and it does change, and it can be planned and it can be unplanned. Okay, so obviously a career is about earn loads of money or earn no money or none of these things. So life and career are impossible to separate. So making those career decisions, for young people, knowing where to start can be quite daunting, okay? And especially if they do not feel like they have any clear ideas of what they would like to aim towards. There are lots of options to consider. And your young person may be worried about making the wrong decision. Obviously, for us, we want to reassure students that while the decisions of what they do after school and college are important and should be made with a lot of thought, those decisions will only define their life if they want them to. Okay, so as the world continues to change and evolve around us, so will world of jobs and careers, and therefore the modern career journey are likely to contain huge amounts of changes and lots of different jobs. So as such, trying to plan out a whole entire career is an almost impossible task for these young people. And obviously, as young parents and carers, you will obviously want to support them through that, your young person, to make good career choices, and will want them to progress into a successful and fulfilling career. Now, what we're going to discuss now is how you can support them, okay, what you can do to support. So we've got sort of 5 suggestions here. So we say, obviously, talk to them. Is a very key. Talk to them about their education, talk to them about career ideas and what they might want to do. It is important to do this at any age, okay? So whether they're younger or whether they're making their GCSE choices, considering sixth forms, colleges, maybe apprenticeships or even higher education. Taking an interest and giving them the space to discuss these ideas will help them as they start to make their decisions. So we say sort of asking simple questions like, what are you good at? What do you enjoy? And what subject topics excite you? And that will help them explore ideas and are much easier to answer than what do you want to do in your career? For young people, that is simply quite a very overwhelming question, and it can be quite big and daunting. Okay, so to support their interest can and should come not only from education, but also outside of education. So these are things like you might want to think about trying new things through volunteering. It might be some after school activities. It could be even work experience. There's some ideas that can help your young people develop valuable skills. So having an interest can do that to their skill set, as well as helping them stumble across career ideas as they might never have thought of any of these things. Their school or college will be a great place to start with this, but they also can explore through some volunteering opportunities, which is, bear with me, just trying to think, pages, sorry. Yeah, so there's also volunteering opportunities, which is obviously through this DOLT, and then there's also Springboard, which is about work experience as well. So as we're saying, it's about encouraging them to try new things through obviously school clubs, work experience and volunteering. So another way is help them research their ideas. What we say is obviously to look at different websites can be really helpful, but obviously as well, it's not about you going and doing that research for them. It's about getting them to start to think about it. You're not obviously there to be able to answer all questions, but obviously these few websites can be really helpful as a starting block. So the National Careers Service and Prospects are very good at job information. UCAS is where you would go as that first port of call for higher education and apprenticeships. And on there, you can look at different subjects or different areas to study at different universities. For Future Learn and Open Learn, these are free online courses that you can try as well. And these are always another idea for them to start to think about maybe exploring a new interest, getting them to learn lots of different things. And there's lots of free online courses on there for them. So as I said, we will send these slides out. So those links to those websites are on those slides as well. Now, this is another area where you're, depending on what age they are, depending on which school they're at, they'll see a careers advisor. Now, what we suggest is that you obviously try and support them to go and make sure that they do see this careers advisor. Obviously, depending on where they are, we'll see a careers advisor in different age groups. But obviously with the careers advisor, they can help them if they're struggling with ideas or feel lost about anything. They can look at encouragement in terms of making them start to think by asking them certain questions to make them start to think about the process, okay? And these are obviously qualified individual professional people that have that real full understanding about careers and those positive steps to going forward, okay? So here is that brainstorm, if you like, of where you can help them. So what support can you give them? So as we said, it's about talking to them, asking them those questions about what do they enjoy, what are they interested in, what are they good at, things like that. But don't sort of go there and sort of start to say, what career do you want? Because it's such a big question for them to answer, depending on their age as well. Obviously, we say about supporting their interests, so thinking about, you know, what they enjoy doing outside of school. Maybe it's also encouraging them to try something new. So it could be something like going and doing some volunteering. There might also be some ideas in terms of going and doing some work experience. So for some subjects, you might, you know, they might want to be, I don't know, something in the animal industry. So they might go and work at, you know, a vet's, or they might go and work on a farm. They might go and muck out some, you know, somewhere. So it's just about thinking and encouraging them to start to think about things that are new for them. As we say, it's about helping them research their ideas, maybe giving them the ideas to start to think about, looking at some of those websites that we'll send over to you. And those can be their starting block for them to start to think about things. And they're very good in terms of getting those students to really start to think about what they're interested in, what they want to do. And as we've just said, encourage them to see the careers advisor, make sure that they, you know, take the opportunity within their school. And if they have got any questions, to go and ask that careers advisor, because they'll be able to gauge and understand for them what, you know, some of the questions that they've got, and hopefully be able to answer. So this is a bit of a diagram in terms of what sort of ages they go through. So Years 8 and 9, they'll start to choose their GCSEs depending on what school they're at. In year 10 and 11, that's when they do those GCSEs. And then from there, they would then go on and do subjects for either A-levels, they might choose the route. They might go down the route of vocational qualifications, which is your BTEC and your T-levels. and they then also might go on and do an apprenticeship. Now, apprenticeships where they will study as well as have a job. Okay, now as you can see by this diagram, all of them link to some format. So with A levels, you can either go on to university afterwards, you can even do a degree apprenticeship, and again, that's an apprenticeship at a degree level, so you will study and you will work at the same time, but they might also go on to employment. With vocational qualifications, you can, doesn't matter if you do a vocational qualification, you can still do all three. And then with an apprenticeship, you will either obviously continue in that employment that you're in or find another job, or you can then adapt it and move on to a degree apprenticeship as well. Okay, so there's lots of different ways of getting to a degree level, and there's also, you don't need to go on to do a degree, you can go on to employment as well, but that's just a bit of a diagram to show you how it all links together. So making career decisions. And what we say is about encouraging young people to develop their own career traits, going to support their future decision making. So for us, it's these three areas, so curiosity, persistence and flexibility. So with curiosity, it's about exploring and learning opportunities. So again, we're talking about that networking, maybe finding new people, looking at work experience and that volunteering. Obviously, persistence is a big one. We don't want, there's always going to be obstacles, there's always going to be that pressure and maybe setbacks, but it's about not being demoralised by those setbacks and obviously helping them to deal with those. Flexibility is very key. Obviously, this world is ever changing and it's okay. Don't be afraid to change your plans and not getting too fixed on one career idea, because things, as we say, are forever evolving. And there could be, you know, something might, you know, they might do something at university or they might do something in a job that then leads them to a different career because they enjoy that part of that job that they take on. So it's really about seeing that curiosity, that persistence and that flexibility. So, and finally, what is really key is we can't and shouldn't do it all for them. What is crucial is getting them to you to guide them. They need their guidance, but not to try and make the decisions for them. Career choices need to be made on what their abilities are, what their aspiration is, and also mainly what motivates them, because obviously if it's them that is motivated by it, then they're going to want to pursue it, they're going to want to continue with it. So it's about their passions really, and making sure that they are happy with what they've chosen to do. So a bit of a summary before I pass over to Ruby. Basically, the choices young people make should be carefully considered, but not in a pressurised way. The choices they make at post 16 and then again at post 18, yes, they are important, but they don't define where they end up. It's never too late to make a change. Obviously, we say that, you know, for students who don't go on to higher education at 18, can go at any age. You can go on and do a degree at any age up to whatever. It's entirely up to you and it's when it's right for you. Okay, for you as parents and carers are the most influential force. That's well documented, that's well, you know, that's researched, and in that young person's career and education decision making. So talking to them about their options and supporting them, exploring them, looking at it is really important as a job for us all as parents to do. So these are the resources we've just been speaking about on the slides. As I said, those links will be with you early next week. We have our own Hepp hub that you can access to get lots of resources from as well. But you know, these are really good starting points that you can then probably develop and find more areas where you can obviously start to think about that research and start to talk to those young people about their career options. Now, I'm going to, before we go on to those questions, I'm going to now put myself on mute. You've heard enough of my voice, and I'm going to bring in my colleague, Ruby. Are you there, Ruby?
Yeah, I am. I'm here.
Lovely. Okay, Ruby, I'm just going to hand over to you. If you can just sort of give a bit more, you know, about your career and how you've, you know, processed some of the help that you've had.
Yeah, cool. So for a bit of context, I'm Ruby. I grew up in Northampton, which is like 2 hours away in the Midlands, and that's where I went to school. And I chose to do A levels sort of post 16, just because my school had a sixth form and I really liked it there, and they were doing the subjects that I wanted to study, so that seemed like the best option for me. And then I basically have the whole way through just chosen subjects that I really enjoyed. So for A level, I did sociology, psychology, and English Lit Lang. I liked sociology the best and I wanted to go to uni. So I then went to the University of Sheffield to study sociology, and then I graduated a year ago. So that's kind of my journey and where I am and how I've got here. But I would say in terms of advice and things, my greatest kind of support network, I guess, going through that process has been my dad. And I think he was just able to draw a really good balance between never telling me what to do, but always sort of encouraging me to do something. So like at sixth form, when I was in sixth form and I could get a part-time job, he was always very encouraging of me to get a part-time job, but would never tell me what to get, just sort of making sure I did something that I enjoyed, and that got me a bit of income for me to be able to do what I wanted to do in sixth form. And then after that, he never even really told me that I need to go to uni. I've always been quite academic and there were courses that I was interested in, so that was my own sort of personal goal, but he was really supportive the whole time, asked me questions about the course. I also feel like some parents could be a bit anti their children doing something like sociology because it's so broad and doesn't have any specific kind of career path. So if obviously you have a child that wants to do medicine, they want to be a doctor, that's great, that's a really specific path and they've clearly found something that they really like. But I had no idea what job I wanted to do. I still don't. I'm 22, so hopefully eventually I'll find some massive career that I want to do. But I have just chosen things that I've really enjoyed, and my dad's been really supportive the whole time, came to all the open days with me, was also just sort of really attentive in all of the like little lectures that you go to in open days. So would start getting a little bit on board with the topics that I'd be studying and asking questions, that sort of thing. Also always being really helpful with revision, so would like go through past papers and things, sort of just supporting me to succeed, but without really telling me what to do. It was more like if I needed specific advice about anything, I felt I was in a position where I could go and ask for that. Obviously, everyone's situations are a little bit different. The person that you support may not be as sort of open to asking directly for advice. But I think just being there and making sure that they're comfortable enough to ask questions and seeming interested without putting too much pressure on. I think when I decided I wanted to do sociology and I told my family this kind of thing, I come from a family where people have gone on to be doctors or they've done maths degrees and they've gone on to be accountants, and sometimes from those parts of the family they were like, so what are you going to do with that then? What are you going to do with sociology? But I just really loved it and I still love it, and my dad and my like closer family were never like that, and I think that really helped. It might have put a damper on it and might have stopped me from going to uni because I didn't want to do medicine, but that was just a personal preference. I think just being supportive of what I was interested in and letting me sort of go with the flow a little bit, but also making sure that I had a little bit of a plan. It wasn't just like, do what you want, I'm not interested. It's like, if you want to go to uni, I'll give you the support and you should be doing something. I think that's the general thing. If anyone has any questions specific to me or I guess my recent experience, I'm kind of happy to take that as well. So thanks.
Thank you, Ruby. That's great. Lovely. So I'm gonna just I'll probably stop sharing my page in a minute. We're gonna do an online poll, but I'm gonna stop sharing so that I can see some questions that are coming in. I think that'd be easier. And as I said, these are our contact details, but I will obviously send through those slides later. So let me stop sharing and then I can hopefully see if we've got anything in the chat. So we've got one hand up now. Obviously we are on, have you got, are you able to put that into the chat, your question? Let's have a look and see what we've got in there. So one of them is about high grades, what can support application to Cambridge Oxford? I think it depends on what subject they're studying. And I will need to double check extracurricular. It can be, for instance, if someone's going to do something at any university that's say veterinary or doctor, something like that, then they would probably try and see if they could get extracurricular within the medical industry or the veterinary industry, but I will double check with Cambridge and Oxford if that's any different, and that will be a question that we'll ask and find out, and it might be something we can get from either of our partner universities. Yes, that's a difficult one. I want a career in YouTube. I think, Ruby, you'll probably find that that's something that we always get when we go out to schools and colleges. Most of them want to be YouTube. Yeah, Ruby, have you got any suggestions in terms of how you can stop a child? It's a bit like, you know, a lot of them want to be footballers. I think it's trying to give them the encouragement to say, yeah, that might be something you want to do, but what about something else? Is there anything else that's interesting to you? And trying to ask them other questions to find out what else is of interest to them, and trying to say, yeah, that's a career, but what about something else? What happens if that doesn't work? You know, my son's always saying he wants to be a footballer, and I say, well, yes, that's great, but what other things are of interest to you, so we can start to look at other avenues as well. Wants to be an equine vet, but not sure how to get her some work in something like this. Is there a process I could use, or is it based? Yeah, there isn't a process we would be able to support. I think what that would be is, yeah, it's going down and perhaps asking vets, finding it. Sometimes, you know, I've got a friend that they're very fortunate they know a vet, so they've been able to do it that way. I think it's about just going in and trying to ask for some extra work experience through vets. It might be going to farms, things like that, and trying to get work experience in any industry like that. But yeah, it would be just ringing round, unfortunately, for that. You would have to speak to the UTC for that. What help support they provide. Obviously that is specific to that school, that college unit, UTC. We could answer it on a generalist, but I couldn't answer it directly for UTC, but we'll answer it on a direct one in questions. How important are chosen subjects in Year 9 on their future career options going into college? My son isn't keen on many of the options available. They're not. It depends. If they were going to be a doctor or a vet or dentist or something like that, then their Year 9 GCSE, well, their GCSE options are important with their A levels, because they'll need to have done some certain sciences. But if they're unsure and they aren't going down that profession, then it's not necessarily as important. Obviously, they'll have to do their English, their maths, and they take a science. But it's more about what subjects they're interested in. I know you're saying the options they're not that keen on, and it's difficult because obviously at GCSE you're only given a certain amount, and it depends on timetabling and things like that. So for future career options going into college, my son isn't. Yeah, it's not so important depending on, unless you've got a specific career that you've got in mind. So it's really just choosing the ones that he does like from those options and then going down that route. Obviously, if you have a specific career in mind, then there would be a need to decide to check what subjects they would need to take. What's the process for going down the apprenticeship route? Do they pick a course first, or do they need to get work? You need to get work first. They would the work would deal with the apprenticeship, so you would get a job in an industry you're interested in, but you would need to check if they are working on apprenticeships. Now it depends what level as an apprenticeship as well. So there's obviously the apprenticeship straight after your GCSEs that you can go down, but then there's also your degree apprenticeship, but you get a job and the job sorts out the apprenticeship. Yes, that's quite a good point. Vets, it does depend on the vets. And as I said, it's sometimes not just going into the vets to get that experience. It might be working on a farm. It could be doing other things. What I'll do is I'll try and find out where people get their experience from, and then we'll put that into the Q&A questions with regards to obviously being doctors and things like that, because a lot of time they do need some work experience of some format. So I will double check how people go about that. Can children moving on to college carry out 3 level 3 courses as well as A levels? I will double check on that with regards to, because there are people that do BTECs and A levels. So some schools offer BTECs as well as A levels at the same time. So I would imagine, but I will double check with college if they can do a mix of A levels as well as an animal management type course, and come back to you. But at schools you are able to do a mix. So with regards to the Ukrainian refugee, it depends on, I think, their status in terms of, so I would need to double check. It might be something that you can email me with that question with regards to the Ukrainian refugee, and I can find out for you what support there is in terms of and what necessary things that they need to be able to do higher education, because it does depend on their status, whether they're refugees, asylum seekers and things like that, and whether they've got residency to stay. So that would probably be a question, if you don't mind, in dropping me an email. Emily, could you just put my email address into the type into the message for me? What special support provision for those diagnosed with special needs? When you say that, is that for going to university? Is that school? A career fair would advise relevant of disability, everyone needs to meet the minimum requirements. So it depends whether you're talking about that one might be as well another one. If you could drop me in a message with dependent on what area you're looking at. Are you looking at it from a career point of view, or are you looking at it for going on to college, or to do with going on to do a degree? Because obviously my answer might be slightly different for you. So if you could, with regards to the careers special needs, if you could just drop me an email as well. When unis are selecting applicants, are they more inclined to go for pupils who have points gained with A-level? No, they don't. It's nothing to do with that. It depends on what, it's on a point system for universities. So it's on UCAS point system, and A-levels and B-Techs will have a certain weight depending on what level or what their grades were, as to how that would affect them. So A-levels and B-Techs are viewed very much similar. It obviously for certain subjects, so I think dentistry and that, I don't think they allow B-Techs, but I would need to double check. But for almost universities, A-levels rather than B-Tech, they're not seen any differently. How could change the way that young people make initial? How could I change the way that young people make initial career path decisions? I think it's really about, if I'm understanding that question right, it's about looking at those 5 areas. So sort of starting to get them interested in conversations with you, and starting to ask them those questions about what do you enjoy, what excites you, so what topics excite you, what subjects excite you, and what are you good at. So obviously by looking at perhaps their parents' evening or their reports and things like that, seeing what they're interested in. Thank you very much. That's really helpful with regards to the horse racing college. We had a few students go there for work and found this really helpful for their veterinary career paths. That's exactly it. It's about trying to find different ways to do these things. And as I said, I will try and find out with vets and that as well, because there's been a few questions on that. Difficult to advise kids as they think artificial intelligence can affect many future careers. Yeah, I know what you're saying there. I would need that would probably be my colleague Dan that would need to answer that in terms of how they do that as from a careers professional, with suggestions for that, and so that will come through as an extra question. Right, so designing apps. Again, I would need to check. That might be something that we can speak to the universities on in terms of what subjects they would need for that. I will come back to you on that question as well. Thank you, that's great. So GP, so I think there was some comments with regards to, so that's brilliant. So GPs and vets do take on work experience. That's really helpful. Thank you very much, Abigail. That's great. Yes, that's exactly right. With regards to the networking, that's something that was on the slides. It's about trying to speak to different people and getting them confident to talk to people and offer advice. So obviously working with, you might have friends that have got certain jobs, you might get them to talk to them. If they're interested in something else, then they can talk to other people. And so, yeah, I think that networking is very, very key. We can find out for you with regards to Doncaster College open days. Most of the open days are actually on our Hepp hub. So whenever there is an open day, we do put them onto our website so that you can access them. But I will double check when that next one is. And again, that will come out with the notes next week. Good question. What is the best work experience for business related jobs? I suppose it's if you've got friends or family that have got businesses, they might be able to go in and do a work shadowing day. It might be asking lots of different offices, anywhere that's got, is a business, you might be able to go in and ask and say, look, over the summer holidays, they might have some jobs that they might be able to go in and do. So it's probably just best ringing round, getting them to send in letters, just to go and find out what those jobs are. Some organisations will, like the vets and the doctors, will take on people just to go in for a day to work experience, job shadow what they do. But as I say, it might be worth thinking about family and friends that you might have as well. Yeah, that's true. Everything is about, yes, artificial intelligence is no different to robotics, automating production lines, jobs, roles, they do change. And that's what we're saying, you know, that this is always forever changing, you know, and it's really about changing your own views on things as well. That's great. Can a year 10 take on work experience in hospital? Again, it would be a case of depending on what area of the hospital they want to work in. I would recommend that they speak to the hospital and send in a letter, or sort of speak to them, but drop an email in. I think it depends on where they want to work, whether they want to work in the admin department, the finance department, or, you know, actually on a ward. Obviously, certain areas I would imagine are more difficult to get into than others. It might be worth, as I say, talking to the careers advisor at school, because they will be able to guide them in terms of where organisations are easier to get into to see. Lovely. Is that the 16th of January? I'm assuming is the Doncaster College, but as I said, we will let you know. Thank you. So my daughter is interested in doing something creative, very good at art, so is considering graphic design. How do we become some inspiration for other careers along the same theme, and what college should need? Again, for qualifications, it would be the careers advisor that we would recommend that you go and see, because they'll be able to tell you, obviously, if they're good at art, then do art. But I will double check in terms of what other qualifications they might need for graphic design. Okay, and then we'll send that through. Yeah, lovely. Thank you. Whoever's put that open day on. Yeah, exactly. Work experience, go directly to companies. I think some schools make the student find the work experience, whereas others, they have listings of what work experience. So it's about finding what they're interested in and then going out and directly connecting with them. I think it's very difficult because obviously careers do always change, and some of those careers you might think will be obsolete and some won't. I think it's about trying to find them, to think about what their passion is and what their interests are. And it's difficult to future-proof because it's forever changing, and we don't know what the world's going to be like in 5, 10, 15 years. What jobs were around before might not be around now, but it'll be slightly changed, and there'll be new jobs that are come in that might also be, you know, have a need of a different skill. So I think it's about making sure that they choose those subjects that they have a passion for. We'll keep going for a few minutes, but obviously I'm conscious of time, and I know people have obviously taken their time out today. What age can they start going to open days at uni? You can go pretty much at any age, just to have a look round. Most students go sort of around year 11 onwards, but it doesn't mean to say you can't go earlier. I would recommend go and have a day out, go and look around the city that you're thinking of, go and start to look at universities. There isn't an actual age that you have to go. You can go at any age, but generally a lot of students will go at that year 12, 13. But as I said, I would start to look at them as soon as possible, because it's you know, you're finding your bearings within an institution, you find out what you like, and it's also a good way of understanding what subjects a university has to offer as well. You're enrolled on a BTEC course and you're also doing an A-level alongside it. Yeah, that's it. That's right. Thank you very much, Sarah. Yeah, so students can do that. They can go to they can do both BTEC and A-level, and I know schools are the same, so as a college as well, so that's great. So by the looks of it, we've answered as many questions as we can. As I said, we will get my colleague to go through those questions, and he'll be able to answer some of the ones that we haven't possibly been able to answer completely. And we will send out the presentation, and we'll also send out the recording of this session. So thank you so much for joining us this tea time. Hopefully that has been helpful. My colleague Emily, sorry, will do now that poll. Have you got that poll, Emily, that you can just do? It's literally 2 questions that you just need to tick on. If you can, just answer those 2 questions. That would be really, really helpful. They are into the chat, so if you've missed the first one that's just thrown up, if you can add on to that, click onto the chat, you will see those second polls. But thank you so much for your time. I will also share my screen and put my contact details up so you've got them there should you need them. And then if you do have any questions after this session, please do drop us an email and we'll do whatever we can to help you.